Welcome back everyone to ZumaFan. So in this video I am reacting to a long video that talks about a trans episode in the Paw Patrol. And so I just want to warn for the parents if this is going to be like a good video to have their kids to watch. And usually I have been moving towards making very kid friendly type of videos because I want it to be for everybody, and I think it's just beneficial for everyone if I don't swear and I don't talk about certain topics that are not good for kids, honestly. And so I don't think that that's gonna be for this video because in here the person swears quite a bit and they get into a lot of politics, and I give my opinions that could offend some people. I'm just warning you that there's a lot of stuff in here that if you're concerned, you may not want to let your kids watch this because we do a whole like deep dive into like the whole political LGBTQ stuff. So I just wanted to let you know that before we get into it. It's a long one, so yeah, with that said, let's dive in. Hello everyone, it is I, Fan, and I will be doing a reaction to the video called the Trans Paw Patrol episode. Now, as you all know, I've been watching the Paw Patrol since it came out back in 2013, and I've kept up to date ever since. I've been watching many of the episodes, most of the episodes I would say, but it's only in the newer seasons I haven't really been watching as much. So it is definitely possible that there was a Trans Paw Patrol episode and I just missed it. So I think that checking out this video and figuring out what that was is going to be really cool. Now, I was actually planning on reacting to a different Paw Patrol video, but my sister brought this one to my attention before I did that, and I thought that this one would be more important to react to than the one that I was planning on doing. So this should be rather interesting. This video is 34 minutes long, so if I will be pausing throughout and giving like my opinions, I think that this is going to be a very, very long reaction, maybe up to an hour, and I hope that that doesn't happen, but it's definitely possible. So, with that said, let's dive in.
No, I know. The idea of a Paw Patrol trans episode seems wild, completely out of the blue on you. But the actual truth of what I'm talking about today.
So, I don't think that's actually like that out of the blue or that strange, honestly, especially today, because I think back in 2013, all the way up until like 2017, perhaps people would think that that was a bit strange or a bit out of the blue or whatever. But for today, I definitely don't think people would be that surprised, especially after seeing the non-binary character River show up in Rubble and crew. I think that people are just more, open and more expecting this kind of thing in the Paw Patrol today than they would have been, when the show was just releasing.
With this franchise is far, far weirder than that. Far weirder than how I can't draw animals. Seriously.
Well, to be honest, you can't really draw humans either because Ryder Lissy has a mountain for a head. But the animals also look pretty bad too.
Look at these abominations. A few of you probably just want me to confirm right now whether this is a real trans episode or just one where, I don't know, a male dog puts on a dress or something like that. And yes, okay, this is a canonical trans episode, so you can unbunch those knickers and get the hell
Okay.
off my back. Anyway, what is Paw Patrol about for those people who might be tuning in and over the age of 20 slash below the age of 35? A group of people who probably were not looking into this young kids Nickelodeon show or had kids who were watching it. Well, Paw Patrol.
Now, I think that for the most part, I think pretty much everyone knows what Paw Patrol is at this point. I mean, it's all well and good for this person to talk about the show and to help people understand what it is for those who don't know. But I would be pretty confused if there was someone on the planet that doesn't know what Paw Patrol was, unless you're like living in the mountains or you don't have TV if that's something you don't like, I guess. But Paw Patrol is pretty much everywhere. Like you probably would have seen it by now. But it's totally fine if you haven't seen it, then this person is gonna go into what it's all about.
Is the tale of a boy named Ryder in Adventure Bay, who forms the aforementioned group with his 6 dogs, Chase, Marshall, Sky, Rocky, Zuma, and Rubble, all of whom get equipped with special gear that aligns with their chosen field of interest. Like Sky, who operates a helicopter and rescues people with airlifting, or Zuma, who uses a hovercraft and a submarine to save those in the water, or Rocky, who collects stuff that needs to be recycled.
Rocky is a 6-year-old mixed-breed recycling pup whose pup house transforms into his trusty recycling truck.
Okay, look, not all the dogs had winning career choices with regards to the badass technology that they get to use.
Hey, listen, don't downplay Rocky's role. Rocky is very smart, and especially, I'll be honest, like in the newer seasons, he's been doing a lot of good. Actually, he's been getting used quite a bit, and he's even been doing things that I thought Rubble would do, where he's like building stuff and replacing elements and all this kind of cool stuff that he is doing. I'm like, isn't that Rubble's job? But no, Rocky is doing it, so it's actually pretty cool. Rocky has been getting used, and yeah, he is valued in the team. So I wouldn't downplay his role in the Paw Patrol.
Some of them just get a recycling truck, and that's fine, alright. Look, he had some pretty cool looking gear in the Paw Patrol Mighty movie, which ended up becoming his main seasonal gear in season 10. But you know what? Rocky is doing a hell of a lot better than one of these dogs. Looking at you, Chase, you damn cop with your cop car.
Yeah, like that. Great job. Now, just push this button here and whoa!
All right.
Nice shot.
Seriously, we don't have to go in depth here on that most dreaded of pop culture topics for any series that has police officers in it, the propaganda aspect that many shows end up feeling embarrassed by, and doing some
Okay.
awkward turnabout in their final seasons, a la Lucifer and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. But Paw Patrol rests very strongly on a simplistic and heroic interpretation of policing through Chase, presenting him as the serious, stoic, adult dog of the group who is reliable and who you should go to if you have a problem. Look, I'm not asking for Paw Patrol to do an ACAB episode where Chase learns that wearing the same outfit that many human police officers do gets him treated with suspicion by certain groups of minorities, and then seeing why that suspicion exists by being on scene when racial profiling occurs, or what.
Well, I'll be honest. I truly think that this person actually would want that. I think this person would actually unironically want that. But to have a show that's revolving around like little children, like that's what it's made for. And this person does unironically wants an episode where Chase figures out that being a cop is actually kind of a bad thing. I don't. It seems weird. Like these kind of concepts and like ideas being discussed in a kids show. I would give them credit for discussing something like that, and I think that they could probably do that. But at the same time, it's for kids, and I think that the seriousness of having like power as like a cop and using that towards groups that are kind of not seen as well as other groups in a society. I don't know. Having an episode like that is, I don't know, like it just seems wrong for that type of age. But I know that this person's saying like I don't want that kind of thing. It's like you're just saying that even though you do actually want that. So don't lie.
Because a police officer lies on, well, anything that they do, media, testimonies, whatever. But it would certainly be interesting to see how a writer could pull such a plot line off here. Kids do need to learn that police are not these infallible pillars of society that they can always trust. Because some of those kids.
I mean that's true, and I agree, and I think that that would be rather interesting. And an idea for that, I think for an episode could be like Chase going to like another city or another town and meeting police dogs or like the human police there and seeing the kind of wrong things that they do or lies that they have that they're doing. You know what I mean? And Chase has to come to terms that there's like people out there who wear the same badge as he does that are using that as an excuse to do bad things to others. I think that that could actually work. I just don't know why would we need that for a children's show. I think that if we had a Paw Patrol that is a little bit more adult oriented, like something for like teens or younger adults, I think that that could work. But for a children's show like this, I don't know. But I would definitely like to see how that kind of episode would play out.
Honestly, most of those kids are going to deal with harassment and violence and issues with the police. Also, I just
Also, I'm sorry, I don't know. Yeah, you're saying most? I highly doubt that most children are going to be harassed by police. I highly doubt that even if they become adults, that most of them will. I highly doubt that.
go doing some digging that Chase is one of the group who doesn't believe in the supernatural stuff the Paw Patrol encounters, and takes a lot of time to convince when wacky shit goes down, which led me to wanting to find out what the hell kind of supernatural episodes of Paw Patrol there were, and that brought me to the time that a mer moon occurred and turned some of the Paw Patrol into mer pups, or that time a meteor crashed into Adventure City and turned the Paw Patrol into Super Pups, or that time that the Paw
I'm not sure. Chase wasn't skeptical in the Mighty movie about the whole meteor and power thing because he got to see it. And I don't know what this has to do with like police. Maybe you could say like the police don't realize what they're doing is actually harming people, even with all the evidence or something like that. But when it comes to Chase, him being skeptical, he's a cop, right? So him doing like investigations, getting evidence, and all that kind of stuff. Of course, he's going to be skeptical until there is something that can prove him wrong, or just prove anything, honestly.
Patrol go to the Barkingburg Castle as part of the Barkingburg royalty arc to investigate ghosts, only to get caught up in an attempted coup by Sweetie, a member of the royal family who uses her robotic toy frog Busby to enact.
Also, I hope this person brings up like the ghost ship, the pirate episode, the Halloween one, because there was some weird, spooky ghost stuff going on there.
A devious plan.
Really? Powerful enough to say, make someone queen?
Someone like you, sweetie?
Regardless, it's time for me to pull a switcheroo on you here. Because when I said this was a wacky trans episode, the first part of that wackiness was that this is not even in Paw Patrol. That's right. I kinda tricked you a little bit.
Yeah, you kind of did because you said Paw Patrol. See, I literally brought this up in the beginning when I talked about River. So I think that this is possible that they're gonna bring up River here. We'll just have to see.
See, it's in the Paw Patrol universe, but it's in the spin-off series Rubble and Crew, featuring Rubble, the construction dog, and his family, who all get kitted out in gear and get vehicles despite the fact that they are clearly mostly puppies and therefore should probably not be operating heavy machinery. I learned that one from my time working retail in Bunnings Warehouse. Lowest prices are just the beginning. God, the programming will never go away. That's right. We are actually talking about one of the main characters' side gigs in Builder Cove. Their own little town that they basically run like a
Yep.
mob family because they build whatever they want, whenever they want, and nobody gets to stop them or tell them no. Zoning laws and council.
Yeah, well, that's because the mayor is kind of stupid and she doesn't know what she's doing. She forgot to build a bridge in the first episode of Rubble and Crew. She forgot to even do that. So I mean, it's totally fine for Rubble and his family to take up arms and start creating buildings and stuff because the mayor will just forget to do all that. So they're just gonna make the decision for her.
Approval be damned. These dogs will put up a bunch of random ass ugly buildings that probably are not up to code, and who is gonna stop them? The last person who did got their legs smashed by Motor's wrecking ball and buried under 6 feet of concrete by Mix, the
What episode of Rubble and Crew was this? If one of the family has killed someone in an episode, please let me know. Give me the link.
master chemist of the Rubble Crew. Do you think she
Oh my
makes
God.
meth? Like Walter White? It's your funeral if you ask too many questions. The other members are Grandpa Gravel, whose main job is giving the pups snacks, and chilling in the background, Auntie Crane, who supplies them with gear and goods to do the projects and also chills in the background, Charger, who doesn't have any specific specialization apart from lifting things and seems to mostly just be there.
I like the fact that they're having like a hard time trying to describe the characters. It's like, well, the ant just gives them food and chills out in the background. That's it for like most of the characters. Like that's all they ever do. There's like nothing to them. You could describe pretty much every character and their personality in the Paw Patrol. Then you go to Rubble and his family, and you got nothing. I think that's funny.
To keep up company morale.
Time for a little tree removal. Rubble, are you ready?
The cafe is destroyed.
It'll be okay, Mr. Porter.
Who gets to clean things up after the others have had their fun? What a shit job. There are, of course, a million other characters, but
That's actually not a terrible job to clean up after people. I think that's an important job. Now, it could be trash for him, but it's still an important job, much like Rocky, an important job. So don't downplay it.
by God, I just hit 1,000 words in this part alone already, so I reckon we can just forget about talking through all of those and finally do that trans episode that I promised you.
Mhm.
So let's do that with Season 1's episode 17A. The crew builds an observatory. Though they kind of build a bad observatory, frankly, and no. Save it for the end, Simpson. Don't get into it now. Start the intro music.
Yeah, please don't.
Anyway, the episode begins with the dogs
Copyright.
all coming together to figure out what horrific edifice to the complete control of the town they're going to do today. Literally, they haven't even got a reason for it. It's just, oh, what do we feel like doing today? Surely there should be some kind of project manager who gives us tasks that would specifically benefit the town and its people, but, well, we know what happened to the last city official whose job it was to keep us pups in line. Old Grandpa Gravel left them floating at the bottom of Builder Bay with 2 gravel bricks tied around their legs. And then
Yo, this family's messed up. This is kind of crazy. Not gonna lie. I haven't watched all the episodes, so it's possible that his family did murder somebody. So, like I said, please, link.
suddenly this random character skates onto the scene with badass music playing to indicate how cool they are, because they skateboard.
Skateboarding is so cool. Isn't like seriously, guys? Like skateboarding is so cool. And if you skateboard, you're just a cooler person. Okay, I'm gonna follow you to the ends of the earth.
Is skating still a cool kid thing to do? Has that identity maintained itself over the past 2 decades since I was an impressionable child who tried to learn how to skate?
It absolutely is.
Discovering that my
Don't
innate
play.
lack of balance pretty much crushed that dream and meant I would never be a skater boy. Golly, Avril Lavigne would never fall in love with me. But this actual skater kid, who I guess is just cooler than me, gets a whole ass pan-up scene before they see the pups and their frankly crazy awesome looking construction gear, and swivels on in while saying, "Gotta get that pic," like an NPC. And trust me, you're gonna hear,
Yeah, it's because like this whole thing was cringe. The whole thing was cringe. Like all of it.
"Gotta get that pic," an awful lot before this episode is over.
Whoa! Oh, gotta get that pic.
Seriously, as an autistic person myself, I can
Same.
always identify with these characters in children's shows because the way they write them as effectively only having 1 or 2 personality traits that becomes everything they are sort of ends up looking a lot like the kind of hyperfixation that I know I deal with pretty hard. Like how I used to, and still do, and probably will, continue to take a single bloody thing and make it my everything for a period of time. It's how
I actually do the exact same thing, honestly. And I did that for pretty much. If I watch a show, I'm gonna be hyper fixated on it for a long time, and then like I have to wait till the next show, and that mostly happens with like Star Wars shows. I'll be like hyper fixated on that, and then I'll go to the next show, like the Owl House, and then I'll be hyper fixated on that, even though I still haven't really gotten over that, and then I'll go to the next show and do that. So it's just kind of how I work. I get hyper fixated on things, and then I'll forget the last thing, and then eventually I'll go back to the last thing, and then hyperfixate on again. It's all over the place. Like how this works is crazy.
Managed to make a 10-hour Harry Potter video about stuff in the franchise that nobody else bothered talking about because why the hell would they? Or how I have spent over 5,660 hours playing only Europa Universalis 4. Am I saying that all children's show characters can be headcanoned as autistic if you want? Yes, the skater kid is introduced as River, who just moved into town with her family, and I guess doesn't know the situation with these pups yet. And they all seem to be getting along pretty fine. River tells the dogs how they've been skating around the town, taking pictures of all the cool buildings that definitely don't meet zoning or coding laws the pups have put up over the past 16 episodes. And yes, you might be able to guess that River's entire identity at this point is skating and camera.
I've been skating around all day, snapping pics of the amazing buildings here.
How did you possibly...
Yeah, there's just not much to River. Like, personally, there's just not much to them at all, honestly. And it made it very hard for me to, like the character at all. Now, it's not like Danny, from Paw Patrol, where he's, unlikable and annoying. But River is just, nothing. They don't really have, an emotion or anything you can really connect with, unless you're, autistic. But I am also autistic. And I was just more like, okay, that's fine. I mean, it's like a nice detail or a nice thing that you added there, but it just doesn't do much for me. I want a little bit more out of my characters than just, oh, they're autistic and they hyperfixate on taking pictures or skateboarding.
Figure that one out. Was it the skateboard shirt? The fact that they keep talking about taking pictures and saying, gotta get that pic, in response to River hyping up the cool looking buildings, one of which is a popcorn cafe shaped like popcorn. And who the fuck would open up a popcorn cafe? Popcorn is not a sufficient food on which to base an entire business.
That's true, but at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of businesses that do run on popcorn. I think there probably is, because I have gone to the store many times, and there would just be buckets of popcorn in different types. You got, the salted, you got the butter, you got the caramel, and then you got, the hot flavors. You got all sorts of flavors. So perhaps there is a business that is run that you could have popcorn is all about. Plus in Adventure Bay, there's literally a stand much like this, but it has the drink at the top of it, So I mean, it's definitely possible that you can have a popcorn stand that has nothing but popcorn as what is being sold in the business, but just have different flavors for the popcorn.
Gotta do something else alongside it, right? Actually, I'm gonna quickly just check something.
You could add drinks, so it's not like the only thing they can sell is popcorn. I think they probably would sell drinks.
Okay, yeah. Popcorn Cafe links to nothing except for the episode of Paw Patrol / Rubble and Crew where they build that. I'm not being stupid here and missing some hip trend with the kids. But in response to River talking about this, Charger, the big, not-so-intelligent guy, has a moment that would seem bragging on anyone else where he realizes that they built all those buildings. These
Where
pups
they
are the
build them?
ones with the awesome builder skills River is talking about.
Yeah, they must. Oh, wait. They're us.
Jeez, buddy. Are you doing okay? You were literally involved in building those things a couple of weeks ago. It's worrying you've forgotten already. Then River presents to us why they are here in the episode. It's to give the pups the inspiration for the week and show them an observatory that River wants to get built, which is the title of the episode. River wants it built because they want to get a picture of a shooting star that they whiffed the last time because it was too far away. And so an observatory would help them get that pic. And the pups all commit.
Yeah, that's the whole plot, by the way. That is it. It's just build an observatory so we can view a meteor. And it's kind of strange, because how many of these things do we have? There was literally a Paw Patrol episode where they build an observatory. And they have basically just this plot again. In the Paw Patrol episode, we had, Mayor Humdinger who steals the observatory and is flying it around and stuff. But here they have to make it up a mountain and because it's all slippery because water's there and it freezes because it's so cold, they can't get up. It's stupid on basically the same level, and it's basically the same plot. So there really is no point to this whole episode. It just kind of feels worthless.
Helping River build that observatory up on, I don't know, that mountain over there. Why not? There probably isn't any native wildlife who would be freaked out or hurt by the construction in their home going on. And, well, I mean, River is now a friend of the family, if you get my drift. They're in tight with the puppy mob, and so they can do anything.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense at all, by the way, to have them choose just this mountain right next to our house to build it there. They could technically just build it anywhere, right? And it would save them a lot of trouble because what ends up happening in the episode, like I said, the water freezes on the mountain, so they can't drive up, and it creates like this whole like, oh, we gotta smash the ice so that we can drive over it kind of thing. And you could just cut all that kind of stuff out if you just built it on the flat ground of which, like or just put it on a mountain that's not as high as that one would make way more sense, but they just don't do that. They have to have some type of conflict or some way to keep the episode going, and it's really stupid.
Do that for me?
You bet. Anything for our new friend.
And before we can move on to the next scene, I have to quickly talk about something
Cringe.
that upset me the entire time I was watching this episode, which is the wagging tails. I get it. They are dogs. Tails wag, butts wag, that happens. I've owned dogs in the past, but the way it's animated and it happens while they're talking like people is just some uncanny valley level shit that sets off my "us just ain't right" hackles.
Bingo! There's a special shooting star that's blasting right by. You do that for me?
The dogs have a person on call.
It always looks weird in Rubble and Crew. Don't know what it is, but they even have like a wag their tail like song at the end of pretty much every episode, as far as I recall. And it's so annoying the way that it looks. I really hate Rubble and Crew, by the way. The Paw Patrol one is way better. They don't wag their tails 24/7. They do stop sometimes, but you can see them wagging, but it's less annoying. I think because of like the way their bodies are shaped and the animation, it just looks way less annoying.
Who can just get them a telescope for an observatory ASAP, which I guess is just more of that power of the canine mafia. And then they have the dogs talk openly about their tails wagging when they eat treats and showing off their butts. Please, please stop, Paw Patrol. Please stop doing this. I don't want to think about it.
So good. Makes my tail wag.
Dogs go to get all the gear up the mountain.
Yeah, like I said, they really highlight it in Rubble and Crew, and it's really annoying. I don't know why they do this.
They discover that there is no road up to the top, unfortunately, because I guess the construction is all focused on building silly buildings rather than, I don't know, the necessary infrastructure to sustain those buildings.
It's just so dumb, and you can avoid it. Like observatories could be on flat ground and still probably see what they're looking for. I have no idea why they need to build it on a mountain. Now they could have explained it in a way to where if it were on flat ground, that the lights from like the town or cities or something like that would basically like block out any of the stars, because if you're like in a city with bright lights, then the sky's just gonna end up looking like just pitch black and no stars. So if you go up higher, you probably could see the stars. Now they could have used that as an explanation, but they didn't. It's just let's build it on a mountain. That's it. I don't know why.
But thankfully, the dogs work out an alternative option of just driving up the stream that runs to the top of the mountain. River and Rubble call this a smart idea, but honestly, a smarter idea is to just build that road. Because when you have to inevitably do repairs or maintenance on the observatory, or maybe, I don't know, people want to go and...
Also, another thing they could have done was drive to the top of the mountain, right? And figure out where the water's coming from and then block it off so that the water would stop running down the mountain, right? So if you block it off at the top, then the water stops going down, and eventually over time, there's no more water and you could just go up. Of course, it will be muddy, but outside that, it will be much better to drive up rather than what ends up happening where the water just freezes and turns to ice.
visit it, it is helpful for there to be a direct way to get to it, which doesn't require tramping through bush or having a good...
Plus, I will be fair to Rubble and Crew. This person says, why don't they just like build the road up? That will take time, and eventually, the shooting star will just go by and they won't see it because of how long they've been spending building the road. So I'm going to be fair to Rubble and Crew and say that it is best just to build it at the. If you are planning on building it at the top of the mountain, which they end up wanting to do, then what they ended up doing took less time than if they just built the road all the way up there. But of course, outside of that, I won't give them any more credit.
Enough vehicle that you can drive up a river. Like, I get it, it's a kid show, but we can still teach kids about the importance of future-proofing projects and infrastructure construction, alright? The camera then does a really...
Yeah, and also there was a episode of Paw Patrol which dealt with Chase's birthday, and one of the wind towers, wind turbines, it broke, and because of that, the power went out. So it's like it's kind of dealing with like green energy, I believe that's what it's called. And yeah, you can kind of have episodes like that. I wish we had episodes like that, honestly. Especially with Rubble and Crew, you would expect an episode like that, but we just don't get it.
Awkward pan and a musical sting to the observatory materials on the ground while all the dogs are driving up the river. Which I thought was going to lead to a scene wherein all the dogs were like, oh no, we forgot the very thing we were going to build. Oh, how could we be so silly? But instead, they just sing a version of row, row, row your boat, and it cuts to the top of the mountain, and everything's fine. Well, everything's not fine, but they intentionally left the gear behind while they scouted the mountain.
Everything's fine except the writing.
And now they need to move fast, because the real threat this episode is the fact that it's cold up the mountain. It's only going to get colder as night approaches. They might even get stuck up there and have to eat river or something, unfortunately.
Back down to get the telescope.
Yeah, it's getting cold up here.
Wheeler then makes a joke about them.
I also wouldn't bring river on top of the mountain, honestly. Because if something bad were to happen, then they would be at fault. And something could honestly happen with the mountain being that high up. I think what they should have done was left river on the ground, and then they would do the work on the observatory, build it, and then when everything is safe, they would bring river up. So it is dumb the way that they ended up doing it, and dangerous in a certain sense.
Turning into popsicles. A joke which gets a rousing laugh from everybody, because, I don't know, it would probably crush Wheeler.
It gets a laugh from everybody except the audience, because it's dumb.
The spirit if nobody laughed at his jokes. And Charger then repeats the joke and breaks it down in a way that makes it clear to me now that his job is explaining things to the kids in the audience who are perceived to be unable to keep up with anything that happens in this show and don't understand what the hell is going on here.
Popsicles! Like popsicles cause we're pups!
It's a rough time for his character.
It's cringe.
Because that is the job that is going to make you kind of look like the idiot of the group, but is a necessary one for the younger kids who might not get that joke or understand any of the stuff that gets mentioned. They build the observatory base, things get even chillier.
The show is low IQ, I'm sorry.
River drops this funny line about how the pups have serious builder skills while doing some rad arm movements to emphasize their skater cred.
You pups really do have serious builder skills.
And they go back down to
Oh
grab
my
the
God.
telescope itself. Unfortunately, when they hit the bottom, the entire river freezes up instantaneously, like Frozone just hit the scene. And Rubble, Wheeler, and Charger realize that they won't be able to get up the mountain again because I guess they don't have ice treads for their trucks. Probably should invest in those. That's a good investment if you work with cold environments often. River commits to just...
Also, I highly doubt that the river is that frozen solid that you couldn't just drive on it and break the ice and just keep driving. You know, almost like how a boat will drive through ice and smash it as it goes along. I would expect since the vehicles are super heavy, that once they drive onto the ice, it will just break and they'll just keep breaking and drive up. And in a way, sort of like the broken ice pieces will help them like gain traction. I don't understand how on earth the ice could freeze over. It can be that cold that they freeze over and then they literally freeze the entire river underneath. So it's just a big, thick, smooth piece of ice. It doesn't make any sense.
Giving straight up at this first sight of trouble, saying, oh well, won't get that pick this time, I guess. And Rubble tells River that they clearly don't know the pup mob that well. This mob don't give up at all when they're committed to finishing a job.
Thanks for trying, Pups.
River, there's something you gotta know about Rubble and crew. We never give up.
Also, a few of the dogs are still stuck up that mountain, so maybe figure out a way to get them down so they are not, like, left at the top and turn into a Paw Patrol rescue episode in the future. As Rubble says, they never give up, because there is always a construction solution. And, oh buddy, I don't think there is a construction solution to everything, but I love the optimism. Rubble, how are you going to solve the Israel-Palestine conflict? Construction? Rubble calls Motor to drive down.
Could make sense. I mean, you can reconstruct all the buildings that are destroyed. Get the new homes.
Down the frozen stream with her wrecking ball. And
Copyright.
she does, absolutely smashing it to shit while spinning wildly and screaming boom, boom, more boom. Which is horrifying, honestly. This child...
Yeah, she's like obsessed with destroying stuff. Like Israel.
should not be operating this.
We need her to go.
She does successfully wreck the
Right.
ice. River gets that pick of Motor wildly breaking every safety regulation I can think of, while the other pups cheer at this destruction, because, I don't know, you put a bunch of kids in charge of shit like this, maybe following guidelines and procedure goes right out the window. They build an open-air observatory, which I really don't rate. I mean, telescopes like the one here are very expensive and finicky, and you normally want to protect them against the kind of elements that can exist.
Well, don't worry. They somehow got it, and they understand how to use it. But you don't actually understand where they get the elements that they need for these kind of things. It makes no sense. They kind of just like just exist. They just come out of nowhere. I have no idea how they got all the materials that they need to build an observatory, even like the big like telescope thing. I have no idea how they even got that.
At the top of a mountain like the one they built it on, I don't think some railing around it's going to cut it, but at least they did put the railing in there. So one OSHA guideline wasn't ignored.
Way to go, Motor!
River gets that pick. Thanks.
Kind of confused you why they even put that up in the first place. The railing, like as if someone's gonna fall off of that, even though there's like a stairs. Like everyone knows, like not to walk off the parts that are a little bit higher off the ground. They would just walk down the stairs. Kind of confusing, but whatever.
The dogs for their help in making River's dream come true. They're all good friends now, and then they do the wiggle and wave. What's the wiggle and wave? You might be...
Oh God, I hate this. This is what I was talking about earlier when they're shaking themselves. So annoying, cringe, and it's kind of weird. I'm gonna be honest with you. Also, if all River wants is just to get the pick, then why on earth don't you just like take a picture like on a TV or something? Like you're less interested in actually seeing this huge event than you are taking a picture of it.
Rightfully asking, well, when the pups do a job, they have
Oh,
to
here we
rant
go.
about what they did while doing a little jumping and boogieing around, like a victory dance of some kind.
We built an observatory! Rubble and crew! And it's pup-tastic! That's what we do!
And that's the episode. Now, keen-eyed viewers amongst you might be at...
Yep, that's the whole episode, everybody. As you can see, nothing happened and it was quite boring. So this is why it's going to be very difficult for me to make a video for it, and why it's taken so long is because there's just not much to talk about. There's like nothing in it. My video would be dealing more with the controversy, honestly, because at least that's more interesting to talk about, because the episode just has nothing.
this point getting your pitchforks ready in the comments, because none of that was transgender, right? God damn it. It was just a regular ass episode. And I can understand your confusion, but holster them there torches for 2 seconds and let me explain myself. See, this wasn't a trans-centric episode. It wasn't an episode that was about trans issues or trans lives or whatever, because that wouldn't really fit the formula, honestly. Rubble said that there is always a construction solution, but you can't construction solution away transphobic bigotry, alas. However, it was a trans episode in the sense.
I mean, in a way, you sort of can, as far as like trans phobia. And whenever I talk to like transphobic people, or homophobic people, biphobic, whichever it is, one of the things that you have to understand is that they come from a different experience. They lived an entire life, and now they feel like what they were living is now being destroyed in a way, and that life is becoming more complicated, and they want it to be a little bit more simple like it used to be. And so you kind of have to meet them where they are. You can't just scream, "Oh, you're a bigot, you're evil," and then cancel them. I don't think that that's a good solution to the problem, because all that's going to do is that's going to create echo chambers. They're going to go into the places where they are accepted, and so these places are much smaller than all the other places, but individuals who might not have been thinking about that otherwise could, come into these places, and then they get introduced to these kind of ideas and start believing that kind of thing. So I think it's okay to have people have conversations about it and explore the reasons. You can constructively break down the reasons and why it works and why it doesn't work. And I think that it can actually work, that you can change someone's mind with critical thinking and conversation.
That River is canonically written and expressed by the show as a non binary person, which some of you might have guessed if you were playing the wait a minute, gender is this River character supposed to be transitioning to or from, because I've been told it's a transgender episode and this is the only person here, so what's their deal? And as a non binary person myself, it is very important to see these kinds of characters put into kids' shows, and to especially see them presented.
I mean, I would agree, honestly. I would also say that it's okay to have good cops, because earlier you brought up like the cops being like flawed or even bad, and I think that's okay to explore these kind of ideas. But also, we can't just say, well, there's no good cops, because now we're getting into the point where the media won't show cops, or trying to remove cops from media, or trying to cancel shows with cops. So I don't really like that. I think that you can have all sorts of different identities and concepts and shows, and I think that having LGBT like representation in shows is a good thing. But you also have to take it slow for those who don't truly understand it or are afraid of that kind of thing. Because if you push it too much, they could lead into outright like hatred, like bigotry. So if I were like the writers, I would take it slow and I would help the parents and kids like understand. So in a way, I think what they did with River was a pretty all right the way that they did it.
Like any other child. Even in fact, one of the cool kids that children watching might see and go, oh, they look awesome. I want to be like them, skating and taking pictures. Because what this does is it fills a niche that often doesn't get the time or space that it deserves, even amongst transgender representation. I mean, obviously, firstly, it is beneficial for trans people to exist at all in children's media, because of the fact that there are parents out there, or schools, or governments, that will not be giving those children who are watching any information about trans people while they grow up. That will be withholding all of that.
I will somewhat agree. But then you get into the conversation about, well, are they trans really? Because as kids grow up, they start to learn things about themselves, and a lot of kids do kind of grow out of that mindset that they will identify as like the other sex or whatever, and then eventually over time they'll just get over it. So from the parents' perspective, is that you're pushing this onto kids, and that you're saying, okay, well, you can be these things. If you actually feel that, then that's how you really are. And so the kids are more likely to actually stay in that mindset and say, you know what, I really am this, rather than just going through the natural process of growing up and learning who they are and understanding what they are. So I can understand from the parent's perspective, and this is why I said you gotta take it slow. But I also understand like the value of having like trans representation or LGBTQ representation in media. As I bring up the Owl House, I think it does a really good job at that.
That stuff. And so anything that connects with that identity is something that can be useful for encouraging education. Oftentimes, this gets restricted in children's media because LGBTQ representation is viewed as inherently sexual and therefore not child safe, which is not even close to an accurate description of the vast ways.
I will also agree with that. One of the things that I do uh, notice whenever I talk to a lot of these like phobic or bigot type people, a lot of things that they say is that this is kind of a way of sexualizing children using the media that they watch. So a lot of their views of it seem to be that we're using it to sexualize children, when that isn't the case. Like gender identity or sexuality is completely different when you look at it. It's like the way that you identify and present yourself in the world, and then how you deal with yourself in bed with your partner is completely different. And a lot of these people don't understand that. And like I said, having this kind of education and representation in the show will eventually help people.
In which someone's sexuality or gender identity are part of who they are.
Teaching a 6-year-old about sexuality, I mean, this should be common sense.
And as well is really part of a cis straight hypocrisy that will.
Talking about sexuality with the 6-year-old, I'm not really sure what they mean by that. But if you want to point out like the body parts and what they do at 6, I guess that's okay. But straight out going into like what sex does and what its purpose is and how you do it, I think that that should be held off until like purity or after.
Denounce gay or trans things as sexual while being perfectly okay with much more explicit scenes or mentions of their own identities. Or because cis and straight are viewed as normal and how things have been and not a problem for kids to see or engage in. I'm sorry, but children's shirts with chick magnet on them are a scarily common occurrence in clothing marketplaces. And that's some weird ass sexualization shit for a child to wear that no gay or trans person had a hand in. It's also important to think about how, while the show might not be directly or giving kids trans identities blatantly, like here in Paw Patrol, what it is doing is providing them a character whose coolness and presentation will hopefully either be something that the trans kids can connect to, or that will give cis kids an opportunity to see those people normalized as not weird or abnormal.
I did sort of like the way that they did it, but it's almost like the Rex thing from Paw Patrol when Rex has like the wheelchair, basically the wheelchair on his legs in a way. They just they have it there and it exists, but they never highlight it. You know, they don't ask questions about like, hey, why do you got that on your legs? What's wrong with it? You know, and he brings up like maybe a disability he has. Like it exists, but they never talk about it, and that's the same for Rubble and Crew. Um, if you watch the episode, there's nothing in it that tells you that this character is non-binary at all. There's nothing outside of them just saying River. They never bring up like, hey, you a boy, you a girl. They never like use those kind of pronouns. But outside that, you will never ever know. So I mean, like a lot of kids, like if I were younger and I didn't read the fact that this character was non-binary, I never would have figured it out. I would have thought that they were probably a girl, to be honest with you. Um, so I think many kids aren't really going to know about that, and the parents will because they'll be reading up on what their kids are watching, and they'll pull them away depending on the type of parent that you have that wouldn't want you to watch that kind of stuff. So they'll pull that away, won't let you watch it anymore, or they will let you watch it and just not tell you. You know, so I I just it doesn't really say anything honestly. So yeah, like I said, I don't understand how any kid would even know that this is a non-binary character. So it doesn't really help. Like I understand it, and as I said, I do like it because they just treat them as normal. But at the same time, you just don't know.
Normal or sexual. It can also serve to get them thinking about that kind of stuff and then looking it up on the internet. A very useful resource in states or countries or households.
Yeah, and when you say look it up and think about it, that's kind of what disturbs parents, is that they don't want their kids thinking about sexuality or gender. Now, of course, you could say, well, the parents are wrong for doing that. It's super controlling, and that that's like something your kid should go through. That's all well and good. And I would agree for the most part, but I think we have to look at it from the parents' perspective, and it's just not right to tell the parents, who are the ones who, created the child and carried the child and are taking care of it, raising it, and saying like, hey, you just don't understand. You should allow your kids to experience and learn all this. I think that's kind of rude and not right. We should help the parents understand and, let the kids like experience it. But the way that a lot of people in the community want to do it is like just push it onto the kids, and if the parents feel uncomfortable, we'll screw them. And I don't think that's the right mindset to go in with this.
Where access to information about LGBTQ identities is restricted. Everyone always likes to talk about the scary and dangerous parts of the World Wide Web, but it also does have some beneficial functions too.
I
Secondly,
agree.
though, this episode featuring a non-binary character is good for those kids in families or places that do allow them to know about trans people, because it serves to expand that discussion beyond what is normally a very simplified.
Well, I don't really agree with that. It doesn't expand any kind of discussion at all. There's just nothing in it. They say it's a non-binary character, and then you take it as that. There's no like greater discussion. The Owl House pushes that discussion because there's a lot of uh, trans and gay and bi. There's like everybody from the LGBTQ, like alphabet is basically in that show. Like, if you want to find like a white straight person, you are going to have to look extremely hard because like you'll probably not see them. And if they are, it's gonna be like really far in the background. Like you're not gonna notice them because of how much representation they have. They even have like representation of race there as well. So it'd be like the Owl House pushes that conversation. Rubble and Crew having one non-binary character that never explicitly says that they're non-binary, is never treated like that, is not pushing a discussion.
And basic view of the trans community that children get served. By this, what I'm talking about is that trans people often get boiled down to just being trans men or trans women. That they're one of the two genders and then flip over to the other side.
That's true, and that's the kind of conversation as to what is trans and what does it mean. Trans is sort of like an umbrella term that has a lot of like genders in it. If you don't identify with the gender or sex that you were born as, then you're basically trans. So if you're not binary, you're trans, and if you don't identify as a male but you identify as a female, you're trans, and vice versa. And there's many other ways that you can identify. It's definitely like a huge conversation that you can have about how you identify. It's not just the two ways that you can, but that's usually how we view it in our society.
And that's that. Something which even cis adults will also use as their only definition of us. The truth is that binary genders are not very accurate to the human experience or expression, and are generally harmful to view as inherent, and that breaking that perception to give you one that sees who we are as being more open and able to move between artificial boundaries is something that cis people could do with learning, from any age. Some people will take this and say that, well, it might confuse kids and make them all lost about who they are, and, well, that's why you do the education thing. The whole explaining gender and talking it through with them and giving them more guidance on that path that lets the child come to understand themselves better over time, rather than just
It's also not just for the child either. It's also for the parents to help them learn because the more grounded it is, the better it is for the parents. Parents are especially because for the kids because they're developing and they're learning, and because they're younger, they're more in this type of conversation than their parents would be, who grew up in a whole different reality where that kind of thing was never talked about or ever seen. I think having the discussion and teaching about it, I think is a good thing. The parents also have to be at least a little bit open to it and they have to go in with at least a little bit, like I said, a little bit of an open mind, right? Don't assume the absolute worst when you get in there, and it's up to us as part of the community to help them understand that it's not as bad as they thought it was.
Pretending that the trans community doesn't exist or that parts of it doesn't exist at all. I mean, this is all just part of my persistent ask for more diverse and varied trans characters because of how that can be useful for both cis people getting to see that existence and also trans people who can find more places to connect with characters who are closer to how they feel about themselves. Another part of this whole episode discussion that we need to have is behind the scenes and on the other
Mm-hmm.
side of the audience.
And plus, I think that's also good because the Paw Patrol, when I was younger, when I was 13, when I was 11, sorry, I was thinking of the year that the Paw Patrol came out. When I was 11 and then growing up with the Paw Patrol, it really didn't inspire me. I looked at those characters and I'm like, yeah, I would like to be as good as they are. And as I grew up with them, the values that I saw in that show rubbed off on me, and so I wanted to take that into the world and help out. So I think that it is good to have like a good representation for kids to look up to and to teach them to be better people. Because I think what the main focus is, I think what all of us should be focusing on the most is just being good people. Your experience, whether it be your sexual experience or your gender experience, whatever it may be, I think that those shouldn't be the most important things to you. You being a good person, helping out, should be the main focus that everyone should have. I think that that's the most important thing that these shows should teach.
It we just did, which is the writers and the actors involved in the crew built an observatory. We have Si Hang Ma, a non-binary actor involved in shows like Departure and Star Trek Strange New Worlds, voicing River, as well as Lindsay Amer or Queer Miss.
Now, when it comes to like actors, right? I know that many people have conversations like, "Oh, if you're an actor of color, you can only play like colored characters." So if you're like a black actor, you can only play characters voice-wise. Like we're only talking about voicing roles and shows. You can only play black characters, and I don't like that. I don't like the fact that we would have to say like you had to be the race or the sexuality or gender of the characters, and then you have to be the actor who also identifies the same way to play them. That's just not how voice roles work. So I wish that we would get over that. That you don't have to be like a gay man to voice a gay man in a show. I think it's ridiculous. Yeah, and so when it comes to the writer of the episode, I remember watching them on YouTube when I was Republican. I'm a liberal now, but I remember watching them, and I found them ridiculous then, and I found them ridiculous now. And from what I recall from the information that I believe I'm going to go over in my video, but it's been a while, so I'll have to go and find it, that the writer of the episode was complaining and like trashing people who didn't like the episode. So I'm being quite friendly individual here, and yeah, I just don't like them.
Instagram, who hosted queer kid stuff on YouTube to help specifically educate children about LGBTQ identities in a kid-friendly manner directly.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the problem is that you have a person like this who's annoying and super fragile. Like I said, you got to be patient with people, and you got to help them understand. And this individual is just not like that. Yeah, I don't know what else to say there.
As well as one of the founders of Blue Laces, a theatre project that engages autistic children and later on autistic people of all ages, both in the audience and also by providing them with workshops to get involved on the stage as well.
Whoa, they're talking about gay stuff with kids? But talking to kids about gay stuff is actually crucial.
Both of these are non-binary people. And what do we see here on an episode that features a non-binary character written in a way that doesn't make their non-binary identity a problem or employ stereotypes, and in fact just presents them as another kid while also allowing them to exist as themselves? Well, we find that the creative process.
Well, the problem in the episode is that you don't know that they're non-binary at all. Like they had to tell you if like the creators had to come out and tell you that, oh, well, this is how they are, and it doesn't show up in the series or the movie or whatever it is that they're writing, then I find that a problem. I give them credit for not making it such a huge deal in the episode. I do give them credit for that. But at the exact same time, you could have done a little bit more. And we just didn't get, I just felt like we didn't get enough. So, I mean, like, as an episode goes, it's not good. So I just find it kind of ridiculous to say, like, this is kind of, like, valuable.
Heavily influenced by having non-binary people involved in it. Something which you might recognize if you watch my other videos, and if you don't, then, well, I say this a fucking lot, as a thing that I am constantly harping on about as being a big deal. That getting trans people in any capacity on a show will give that show the opportunity to better reflect realities and truths about the community that avoid the dangerous pitfalls of stereotype and bigotry. And lo and behold, it does happen when it happens.
That's so cool!
I mean, I'm not sure if I would agree because, like, one of the things that I remember people complaining about Steven Universe, which is a kids show that has a lot of that kind of conversation in it, is the fact that they did a terrible job at it and that they, like, brought up stereotypes and that they showed, like, gay people as being, like, like, crazy, like, Pearl having Stockholm syndrome. I mean, it's insane. So it's not like every single time that they have it that they do it correctly. It's only recently that I've seen, like, you know, TV shows with gay men in it that I've actually found to be, like, really cute or really well written. Because a lot of the time they're usually just super flamboyant and just, like, completely ridiculous. I don't like that. It's really cringe to me. So it's only recently that we've been getting a lot of well written LGBTQ representation and stuff. So, yeah.
Maybe you could help me.
This is great stuff, because firstly, it feels like it validates everything I keep saying, but also because so often it is hard to get jobs or roles as a trans person in the media industry. And so being able to have that, while also having the ability to put who you are into the script or character, is a fantastically pro-trans move that many other shows should be following suit on. Bet you didn't think this would be happening with Paw Patrol's franchise universe, and yet here we are. Thoughtful production, writing, and acting involvement leading to a thoughtful representation that is exactly what it needs to do for child audiences. This is
Sort of.
like Danger Force. Maybe kids media is doing alright.
Transgender is an umbrella term for people whose gender identity doesn't match the body they were born into.
Okay, wow, you do got this.
Unfortunately, in my final point here, we do have to go into the negative for a second. Although,
No, Rubble and Crew is nothing but a negative.
Talking about the negative in regards to the show or movie itself, or the creators, or whatever. We're actually talking about the negative in regards to the backlash towards the episode that came from the...
This is something that I'm going to discuss. This whole thing is completely hilarious to me. Like, everyone's backlash, they were getting so upset over absolutely nothing. They read non-binary character, and they lost their minds, and they haven't even seen the episode, because if you see it, then nothing happens, and then you're like, what was I freaking out about? That's right, nothing, the whole time.
Right-wing side of media and parent organizations. And yes, of course, as you might have guessed, they got very, very mad about this. This episode being exactly the sort of thing that conservative groups live in fear of.
Yeah, it is amazing. This selfie with my new friends.
But I do think that the episode and the comparison...
I don't think conservatives are, like, afraid of it necessarily. Because I had to go back to, like, when I was a Trump supporter and conservative when I was younger. And I go back and I think about, like, how I viewed these kind of topics. And it's not that I was afraid of them. It was more so that I felt like it was kind of going to ruin children, for one. And I felt like it was, like, destroying the household. And that it was promoting something that didn't benefit society. But I wouldn't say that I was, like, scared of it. Not necessarily. I was afraid of, like, what would happen, like, the aftermath of accepting it. But I wasn't, like, afraid of it existing.
we can make between it and the fear mongering of places like Fox News and Steven Crowder and Trump and honestly name whoever you want to name, Rishi Sunak, Winston Peters, Tucker Carlson,
Darth
Marine Le
Vader.
Pen, Scott Morrison. I mean, God, every single bloody right-winger politician or pundit in every single bloody fucking country has been getting on the trans hate train over the past 5 years, to be honest, regardless of how actually helpful it is for election results.
But is transgender sport a defining issue for Australians, as the PM asserts? Not according to a Guardian Essential poll.
Well, God. This is where I don't really want to get into, like, that kind of stuff, like transgender, like, sports and voting and all that. But for me, I may be a liberal, and I'm like, yeah, every individual should have, like, the rights and all that kind of stuff. But to be absolutely 10,000% honest with you, okay, I don't think that trans women should be allowed in cis women's sports. I don't think that should be allowed. I think that cis women, and we should listen to them when they say it, like, we just don't want this kind of thing. You can have transgender sports, I think, and you can also have them playing as in, like high school sports or something like that. But when it comes to, like, professional sports, I don't think that should be allowed at all, because there's a lot more riding in that, and women have been working very hard to get to those levels, only for a trans woman to come and take it. And it's also not wrong to admit that trans women are biological males. Even though we can have a discussion about, like, what does this mean in society, when we just look at biologically, they are males, even though there's a lot of, like, blurred stuff going on there as to what a male even is. But for the most part, for most people in society, it works pretty fine as to what a male is. So we all know what it is, we all accept it, and we also know what a trans woman is. So I don't think that you should allow it in official, sports where there's a lot more to lose. But if you want it in, like, high school, or just any school for whatever age, I think that that's totally fine, just not in the big leagues.
What we see here from the episode really does reveal the actual justification behind all this hate and fear towards kids-oriented LGBTQ programming. It's not because...
hold on, I'll let them finish, but I was about to say something.
The fears that it's too sexual for young minds. It's not the fears that it's going to confuse people and upset them.
Okay.
It's not the fears that this is going to destroy the fabric of society and family. It's the knowledge that when people see stuff like this Paw Patrol episode, they're just going to see a really bog standard and normal episode of the show that doesn't feature pretty much anything that makes it stand out in those ways that people would be worried about. That the trans person was on their screen and everything didn't break down or stop working. And then you compare this very tame trans representation to the reaction that it got from right-wingers, and you begin to see the hypocrisy. You begin to see...
Yeah, so it's just it's how it works, and I don't understand why they always jump to conclusions right away. But of course, we can't constantly just blame them 100%. Now, they're going to grow up in a reality where this kind of thing was not normal or accepted. So, I mean, that's one thing. They are products of the environment that they grew up in. So you can't 100% blame them for how they feel. Even though they're adults and they can learn, it's just, are you open enough to learn is what you've been taught in the past, like, prevent you from being interested in that kind of conversation. But we also can't say, like, oh, we didn't have a part to play in this. There's a lot of things that we do as a community that doesn't help. Rather it be, like, a lot of like pedophiles that would be in the community, many that assault, like, little children, being, like, gay men or whatever. Having a lot of trans people, like, wanting their kids to dress up provocatively, having, like, children that are drag queens or something like that, like, these things just don't help with that kind of rep. So I mean, we do have a part to play in this, and this is why I said that we have a part in playing and helping them understand that that's not the reality, right? Or that's not the reality for many. That there's going to be some bad apples, but for the most part, we're okay and we're doing good. We just want to have a good life. Like I said from the very start, I've been saying this for a long time in this video. So it's up to us. We got to do better, everybody.
The ridiculousness that exists at the heart of their bigotry. A bigotry that predominantly serves as a tool for those in power to maintain the systems that keep them in power. Every single time we get trans representation that normalizes our identity and that gives cis people another connection to our community in which we are humanized, it dismantles the power that transphobia has just a little bit more, pushes that needle towards the positive one small step further. So yeah, that's my Paw Patrol trans episode. An episode that wasn't actually Paw Patrol technically, but kind of was technically, and was canonically a trans episode, if not a trans issues episode. I think the points that it raised for me and arguments that spun off from it were important enough to talk about it. And the fact that we got to see a non-binary character on a kids show, especially a major kids show, is always a plus in my book. And
it's not a major kid show. The Paw Patrol would be the major kid show, not Rubble and Crew. Rubble and Crew doesn't deserve your time. They put it here because it was for safety. They would never put it on the Paw Patrol because they would be canceled so hard. Maybe they would be canceled, or maybe they wouldn't. Either way, Rubble and Crew is just not as beneficial as Paw Patrol. So if they lose Rubble and Crew, they're totally fine with that. They don't really care. Rubble and Crew is not that important at all.
Hopefully you enjoyed listening to this and learning about it. If you did, then you can like, share, subscribe, comment, or go and check out my other videos. I really appreciate it, and I think there are certainly a few good ones in my selection. I also do pass my comments for suggestions on other franchises, shows, or movies to check out and do a video on. So drop those if you got 'em. If you really, really liked what I did, then you can go to my Patreon and subscribe there to help fund this channel. Those in the $5 and up category should be scrolling past the screen right now. And I really do appreciate everyone on there for their part in helping to make this an experience.
Hey guys, should I start a Patreon? Will you guys give me more money? I like money. So would you guys give me money if I start a Patreon? Also, I think it's worth letting this person, this individual, talk about their Patreon and subscribing and all that. I think it's fair. The video, I was expecting something worse. I didn't like the cop stuff in the beginning. I can understand it, and I could accept an episode like that. But at the exact same time, I just don't know for the type of audience that it's making it for, whether that's a good conversation to have or not. But I think when it comes to like sexuality or gender or something like that, I think there's easier ways to do that for kids than talking about police officers like abusing power towards minority groups.
I can keep doing as I currently am. I have many, many, many more years of content planned that I'm really looking forward to going through, especially because I just do not see other trans content creators bothering to cover the kind of stuff that I'm doing or discuss these shows that nobody's talking about. Because surely some people connect with them or care about them. Those are interesting on the face of it to consider with regards to having anything to do with trans people whatsoever, whether canonical or not. Yet again, if you want to help cover the cost of the rent, internet, food, power, and cat tax that let me keep this channel going by, living, which is certainly important because the Lily Simpson channel would be, well, non-existent without the Lily Simpson part of it, then going to do that. Otherwise, thank you for watching the video, and I hope you have a great day.
Okay, and that is it for my reaction. I think we got a lot of good conversation out of this, and yeah, I want to know what you think about everything that we had to look at. I expected this to be much worse than what I got, but for the most part, it was a rather tame video, much like the Rubble and Crew episode that we talked about. Not really, not really as bad as people were expecting. And they brought up some things that I think would be worth talking about, and I think these kind of conversations are worth talking about. And yeah, I want to hear, do you agree with me or not? So let me know down below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later.